Film Club. Thank you very much for joining us on an episode of Film Club. I am one of your hosts, Andy Harrison. To my right, as always, Danny Dalton.
Hey.
Bless you.
Thanks, mate.
Every single week in Film Club, we invite you along to watch a film with us. We explore some of cinema's best before coming back here to talk it out. Andy, which part of cinema's best have we been watching this week?
Our third sci-fi in our little trilogy of sci-fis, Solaris, as I said last week. Whoops.
So we went 2 weeks ago, 2001 Space Odyssey, last week Interstellar, this week, Andrei Tarkovsky's Solaris. What is Andrei Tarkovsky's Solaris about?
It's humanity's reached a point where they can go into space, as with all sci-fis we've done so far, of these three. And there's a planet called Solaris, and you essentially have this guy who's about to go to that planet. He's watching a video of another guy who's been there, and he's basically saying, oh, there's intelligent life there. It's a bit weird. I saw a child, and then I think, he's fucking psycho. And then it turns out the astronauts are already on Solaris station. Have been witnessing this, so he's like, go over there, this psychiatrist, go over there and assess him, see if their station needs to be decommissioned. And then he goes over and he experiences those hallucinations, those things himself.
So, I'm hesitant to ask this. I'm very intrigued to ask this.
Okay.
What do you think of Solaris?
As the French say, comme ci, comme ça.
Oh, okay.
So there's bits I liked and there's bits I didn't like.
Yeah. What's the bits you like about that?
So this is, I think, right, so there's one thing I struggled and there's a bit in both. But what I liked is I like the score, the music. I really like that. It reminded me of, it's really good, like that kind of, I don't know what it is. It's some sort of weird organ-y, but not organ sound. It reminds me of Final Fantasy kind of themes. That kind of like that particular instrument. I'll find out what it is. And that came out in those right moments, like the end and stuff like that. I was like, fucking well played, well nailed on the actual music and that. If you're going about the sound, yes, it was the use of sound, so he was used to minimal sound. I don't feel, he did it to emphasise that kind of environment they're in, but it didn't hit me that much, so I can't say much about the sound, unfortunately. What I did like, and I hope it's something that you can go into, is the use of camera technique.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
So I'm not a massive, obviously, camera buff, but I noticed an awful lot of his ways, how he would use one camera stationary, but a 360 axis, and he'd go in and out, and there's some scenes where it comes in here and it comes out and it goes and follows them, and then there's times where he's on the main actor guy who is Donatas Banionis, who plays, fuck off.
Nailed it.
What's his name? He plays the gaffer.
Chris.
Yes, Chris Kelvin. He plays Chris Kelvin. And he comes in and the camera goes there like that, and then it switches to the black, it goes in, and it comes back out, which is 3 times.
Yeah, he's got his camera's kind of like weirdly, because the pacing of the film is quite slow, but his camera
incredibly slow,
quite energetic sometimes. Like his camera, yeah, you're right, it will often track in, it'll track out. But my favourite thing, one of the things Tarkovsky's bloody brilliant at, is the subtle camera movements. And what he'll do is, rather than have a camera stationary, it's like as you guys seen down here, it's stationary for a second. Sometimes you'll just nudge it over to the right, and you'll end on this lovely, beautiful frame. Sometimes what he does is instead he'll have like a camera, he'll have like what you're talking about is he'll have a person walking through the door, track them.
Oh yeah, and it'll change position.
And then he'll keep tracking them, and he'll go to somebody else, and he'll like track that person. They might swap back to the other person.
Yeah, but
and the entire conversation, the entire scene plays out in one shot.
Yeah, so I've noticed that an awful lot of one shots, which is interesting. I'm glad you said that. There's some great times where, and it throws you off a bit, I think.
Yeah.
You know that they're like almost moving around the camera as like both actors and the characters. Like sometimes you feel like the camera's there, and sometimes you feel like it's not there. It's weird.
But then my favourite use, because he does that in loads of his films, like he does a bunch of tracking with his camera, loves doing like scenes in one take. But what he does in this, which I adore, is that to break that idea of how reliable is reality, how much is what's going on real. Sometimes he'll like track somebody coming in from camera right, let them go out of frame.
Yeah, then let's come around there.
Or like let the frame. Then he'll peer on the other side,
me.
and you start to think like, well, hang on.
Yeah.
Is that person?
That's what got me.
Or like he starts to raise a question more interesting, I think, thematically, of is that person a guest? Does it matter if that person is a guest?
That's it, though. So that's where we're coming at the philosophy. But to finish up on the camera work, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And that there, your example, is the one. Is how I noticed. There's obviously that scene where he goes in the black and back, but it's the one where I think it's the oh shit, what's the other guy's name? Snort. I think it's where he sat down in the chair, and the second time he comes in, he comes out, he's walking, comes around, then he sits down there like that, and I'm like, fucking well played, because that threw me off, and I was thinking, am I supposed? Is that guy? Is that like they just accept it? He must be that guy. He's just walked behind the camera, but at the same time, is he a guest? So well played.
Actually, just to go off the back of your thing there with the whole like the use of the black, like those black windows. Total contrast the other way is that he often switches from like them being black to white.
Yeah.
And that's like this thematic thing that goes throughout the whole film. The contrast of like dark and light, and the contrast of, I love at the beginning where it's the contrast of nature, like where his home is, where his father's home is.
Yes.
Compared to the city and going into the city, and like he does this wonderful cut back and forth.
I thought nature at the start would be symbolic in some way or another. Obviously, since going to the space station where everything's pretty much, well, I say it's hygienic, I say it's white and stuff like that, but it's a bit of a trash mess, isn't it? The station. But point is. Also, I love the use of black and white when going back in time, because obviously you see the astronaut talk at the start, then it goes black and white. I'm thinking, I don't understand, this is current present. Then you actually realise, no, it's that guy younger. Oh, right, we're back in time. So black and white portrays going back in time.
But not
to a certain
always,
point. I know.
That's what I found fascinating about it. Couldn't put a finger
on
it.
Then obviously the end, where obviously it's black and white, that fucked me up, and I was like, well played.
Yeah, and there's the stuff where I just remember in my head there, where the guy's driving into the city, and there's cuts from black and white to colour for a second, then back to black and white. Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm trying to figure out what it's about. I'm sure there's something there. It's Tarkovsky, so it's there for a reason.
Yeah.
But what is it? I'd love to just sit down again, have a look at this, and just look at how he's using that.
In terms of philosophy, I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed it to an extent. And I love what they bring up, but I felt this is my issue, and I think I know why I don't like it. And the reason I don't like it is they're going about the meaning of life is existentialism. That's the pronunciation? I fuck up that. The idea of that and approaching that. What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be human? Something we should have mentioned in 2001 about how, for example, something in Interstellar, for example, where he hates his life, but love transcends the universe. To speak a lot about that in this, you can see the influence from Interstellar in this, in the terms that love is the thing that we're kind of looking for in this, like the achievement.
This is a great way of a sci-fi examining the idea of love and the concept of love. Unlike Interstellar's attempt at being like it transcends time and space. That's not what they're doing here. This is going right. What is love? Is it a chemical reaction? Is it something innately humane? Like if you are
does it exist to humans only? Yeah,
does it exist to humans only? Can you teach somebody love? If someone loves you but then becomes sentient and human, can they lose that love, or does that love transcend something else, like not time and space? But yeah, like that's a really great examination of the human condition that he's trying to do here.
Which I like.
There's bits of it that like totally fucking go over my head, but I'm kind of looking forward to watching it again to dig some of that a little bit deeper.
But then on the other hand, I felt like, you know what, like I know what's happening. I know the kind of questions they're going to ask. I know that they're going about this, not necessarily love. I know they're going to go on about this, that, and the other. They're going to question themselves, what's reality? And I was thinking, you know what? It's been done before. And that's my biggest problem. And my biggest realisation is this is 1972. This film influenced all those other films I've seen, which is the reason that has spoiled my first experience of this. Yep. So I'm kind of pissed off. I'm kind of pissed off that I didn't watch Solaris for the first time and be like, oh my God, all those questions. Who asked that in the film? Because I've been spoilt by all the latest, films come out, like great example, Moon, for like that. You question yourself, existentialism like that is present. And because you've seen all that, it stems from Solaris. It's influenced heavily by that. And then you come back to this, and it's just like, this is where it started. I should be more impressed, but I'm not. And it's a shame.
So there's the big strength of what Tarkovsky did back in 1972 was, prior to this, sci-fis were campy. They could look low budget, they could look cheap. They were often quite poppy, quite pulpy, in nature. Like they were kind of throwaway media. No one really examined the ideas of what it is to be human through the lens of sci-fi, which obviously later on would be where we'd end up getting a lot of our great sci-fi from. So about 4 years prior to this, you have Kubrick comes along and does 2001: Space Odyssey.
Yes.
And then Tarkovsky did the same thing. He was sick of kind of seeing sci-fi just as a throwaway genre as like a genre which couldn't tell complex, detailed stories. So he went in there with the intent of being like, right, I'm going to do that. So yeah, Solaris is that film which is the grandfather to all these amazing sci-fi stories, but also even those kind of stories that have come since, like Moon. I think Solaris still challenges people on a really complex level.
Yeah, in terms
to try and understand exactly what's going on.
Yeah, so in terms of philosophical, the complexities of philosophy, it does.
And the way, like, just the filmmaking construction as well. He's not the sort of filmmaker that relies on like exposition and dialogue a lot. The first half of this film is quite exposition heavy, but I think at the time he felt like he needed that to get through the sci-fi barrier. Then later on, like, there's the whole scene where what's the guy's name? Chris and Harry are like having a little bit of. She's having a bit of a breakthrough, borderline breakdown, and suddenly they're in zero gravity for a few minutes.
That's good. I like that
they're
scene.
Floating around.
Music comes in, it goes to that photograph of the nature. I love that.
Yeah, it's given no real context. You know, like, unless you're really trying to dig through this film, you don't know what that scene's about.
But you feel like you sway into it and you accept it, and it just comes in. You're like, you know what?
Yeah,
I'm feeling this.
Yeah, and if you really dig in, you can start to see what he's doing with that scene. Like, my assumption is it's something to do with Harry finally having like a moment of becoming human. She's becoming enlightened.
Okay.
Presumably.
By love.
I would love to know in the comments down below if anyone has any thoughts about particularly that scene, but the film as a whole.
My issues were with the pace. Oh, you agree?
So I don't entirely agree. I can see where the problem comes from.
That first 3/4 of an hour before I land the station, I feel like, yes, there's those necessary parts with the astronaut, and he's like, oh, I've seen this, and the question is insanity. They needed to be there for the psychiatrist himself to question his own head. You know, he's the guy he looked up to. You know, his friend who actually committed suicide. He questions that and stuff like that. So that needed to be there. But Christ, I feel like for me, I would like it to be condensed down. 3/4 of an hour is a long time of, like I said, exposition of setting some sort of story, but in such a slow manner.
Yep.
I very much found it hard to get into this film. Very, very hard.
And that's one of, I think, the barriers for someone watching. So if anybody has never seen Andrei Tarkovsky's work before, this is the big barrier for him. Is his films are unforgiving. They're like relentless in their pacing. Like, he will pace a film however the hell he wants to pace a film, regardless of anything else. I actually think 2001 does a better job of keeping the wheels turning.
Oh, incredibly.
Whereas this, yeah, I know what you mean. It really digs in the beginning. You spend a lot of time on Earth before you get anywhere. But in the back of your head, you're kind of thinking, is this Earth? Like, I don't know what world you've set up for me yet.
Okay, yeah, I get that, yeah. But then at the end, it feels like, yes, he's making a break. The middle of the film is my favourite. When you kind of meet Harry and it's like, what's this? Or like even the build up to meeting Harry, like who these guys and all this. Yeah. And when that guy falls out the closet, I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Like, genuinely, what the fuck's going on?
Comes running out.
I know, yeah, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? Proper like had me like, oh. And that's when you go in the black, and for me, it built suspense because I was thinking, what am I going to see?
Yeah.
Whether it's probably, yeah. The middle of the film's great, but then it's like very slow start and almost like not rushed, but the ending just came. Nice, excellent. So that's how I felt. I was just like, expand more upon that. I know it's like, again, because we're going to more to the philosophy at the end.
Yeah.
But then suddenly, like, she's not happy. Then suddenly she fucks off, and I'm just like, build more of that relationship, and then building up, breaking down. Because when she left, I couldn't empathise with him for that. I was just like, all right, fair play, man, you lost it, cool. Which brings us to the end. Yeah,
I know what you mean. Like, I think it's with a filmmaker like Tarkovsky, it's always about the journey. Like it's kind of like Kubrick in some ways. Like, it's not always about the destination of where you're going to. For him, every scene represents something. It's saying something thematic. It's saying something relevant to the film that might not become apparent up until you watch it like multiple times.
Okay.
He's a sort of filmmaker who you could have a scene happen in the first 5 minutes, which links to a scene that happens like an hour and a half later into the film.
Okay.
So he really is the sort of guy where if you watch his stuff multiple times, you get more out of it. Again, kind of like Kubrick. But that is such a big ask especially for people who are like if anyone's watching who's just getting into cinema, I actually wouldn't start with Tarkovsky. Like, you need to go and experience other filmmakers. You need to go and experience like even other very well-regarded filmmakers before you eventually transition over to him. He can be very difficult to get into.
I've been watching film for quite a few years, like, not my interest. Yeah. I struggled with this. I did struggle.
I feel like even if I'd watched Tarkovsky like fresh out of uni, I probably would have been like, nah.
Yeah.
Like, I would have been like, this guy's overrated. He's a hack. Like, I'd be spout my mouth off about it. But
hipster.
Over time, you kind of build an appreciation for it. But you got to build that appreciation. It's like, he's a filmmaker that makes you work. There we go. There's a good way of putting it. It's a filmmaker that makes you work. And it's not easy to sit back and like relax and enjoy one of his films at all.
I did feel like it ended on a high.
Yeah.
With the ending.
The cliffhanger.
Was fucking awesome. I didn't expect that. But like early in the film, I expected it. But then later on, it felt like his cycle had come to an end because it felt like a full circle of film.
Yeah.
Especially where it went back to nature and back to his house. And then suddenly it's just like, nah, mate, it's not a house, it's a fucking island, isn't it, that you're on about? And I was like, oh, shit, man, fucking...
And then you start to, like, it starts to call into question, like, has he always been on Solaris?
Exactly.
And then, like, if he was always on Solaris, like, what was with the guy who comes to visit him at the beginning? Like, was that all part of the Solaris mindscape? Like, I don't know. But yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Not even like, I'd say I'm pretty good at tough filmmakers. Like, I can get into films like this a lot. But even for someone like me, I came out of this only understanding 60% of it. Yeah. And I feel there's a good, dense 40%, which God knows. Like, why did he zoom into someone's ear at one point?
Yeah, I got that, and I was thinking, is something going to come out the ear? A bit like, what's his name? Something like a Ray's head or something like that, you know, David Lynch style. And then that was just nothing happened. I was like, okay. Yeah. Am I supposed to? Is it supposed to tell me to listen for the next scene?
I've been ruminating on that for a while. I'm like, I don't fucking know. I don't know. But there's a little bit of me that loves that. There's a little bit of me that loves that there's a filmmaker that does that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, good luck if you go into this. Good luck. So there is Solaris, 1972, by the way. There was a 2002 remake, which I really want to watch because apparently it's terrible.
George Clooney.
But you can let us know in the comments below what you thought of Solaris, 1972 or 2002 as well. I am interested. Or you can hit us up on Twitter as normal. We'll be back once again next week, though, where we're going to be watching
Spirited Away by Studio Ghibli.
So if you want to be part of the club, get watching. We'll meet you back here to talk about Studio Ghibli, Spirited Away, next week.
Thanks. And Tarkovsky out.